So today, we're going to peek inside the brain of our global supply chains. We're talking about the hidden intelligence that brings the entire world to our doorstep, and how new ways of thinking are making these massive systems smarter and, frankly, a lot stronger. Let's dive in.
So what do all these things have in common? I mean, on the surface, not much, right? But they're all linked by this incredible globe-spanning network that's both unbelievably powerful and, as we've all felt lately, surprisingly fragile. You know, the medicine that saves lives in a hospital, the very steel holding up our buildings, even that cup of coffee that gets you going in the morning, they all rely on this network just working.
The best way to think about it is like a global nervous system. It connects thousands upon thousands of points, from the people who grow the raw materials to the factories that make the goods, all the way to you. But you know, all the recent shocks, we're talking pandemics shutting down ports, wars cutting off food supplies, crazy weather literally washing away bridges, all of that has sent these massive tremors through the system. And it's really shown us just how vulnerable it all is.
Okay, so just how fragile is this lifeline? And what really happens when it starts to fray?
Well, it really comes down to this kind of triple threat that makes our supply chains so easy to break. Overwhelming complexity, constant risk, and just unsustainable waste.
Let's make this real for a second. Take complexity. You've got the oil and gas industry, just this massive web of interconnected parts where one little hiccup can cause chaos down the line. Then there's risk. The steel industry constantly deals with suppliers failing. Or think about how geopolitical conflicts can just, poof, cut off food supplies overnight. And finally, waste. We're talking about things like inefficient milk collection routes wasting tons of fuel, or literally mountains of used coffee grounds from cafes just getting dumped in landfills.
So, how in the world do we fix this mess? Well, a really powerful new set of analytical tools is coming to the rescue. And it's not just about patching things up, it's about building a whole new, much more intelligent system from the ground up. And the big idea behind all of this? It's something called Industry 5.0. See, where older industrial revolutions were all about automation, efficiency, just raw output, Industry 5.0 is different. It's all about putting people back in the center. The goal here isn't to replace the experts, but to give them super-powered tools to augment their skills and create systems that are way more resilient and adaptive.
Okay, so one of the star players in this new toolkit is something called causal machine learning, or CML for short. You know how traditional AI can be kind of a black box? It might tell you, hey, this supplier is a high risk, but it can't tell you why. And that's a huge problem for trust. CML is the answer to that. It actually shows you the cause and effect, giving managers the why behind the prediction. That's how you get real confidence in a decision.
But what about all those gray areas, you know? The situations that aren't just a simple yes or no. That's where fuzzy logic is just brilliant. It's a method that lets computers understand all that fuzzy, human-like language, things like kind of risky or maybe a delay. And that is absolutely essential when you're trying to model the chaos of a natural disaster or a super volatile market.
Right, so the big takeaway here is that there's no single magic wand for all this. It's more like a Swiss Army knife. Analysts have this whole matrix of specialized tools, and they pick the right one for the job. So you've got methods like AHP and Demadal. They're perfect for untangling a super complex web, like in the oil and gas industry, to figure out what's really causing the problems. Then you have something called MILP, which is all about finding the absolute best, most optimal answer, like figuring out the perfect collection route for all that coffee waste. And then there's queuing theory, which is basically the science of waiting in line. It helps you figure out if it's better to fix a product yourself or to send it out to someone else.
Okay, enough of the theory. Let's see how this stuff actually works out in the real world.
All right, our first stop is Montreal, which has, believe it or not, over 1,000 coffee shops. And the problem? All those used coffee grounds. When they go to a landfill, they create nasty greenhouse gases. But what if? What if that waste wasn't waste at all? What if it was a resource? That was the big idea. Could they design a system to create a whole circular economy that was actually profitable?
And the model they built is pretty ingenious. First, they used optimization to cluster all 1,000 shops into logical groups. Then, they set up certain cafes to act as collaborative hubs, circular coffee shops, they called them. These hubs got special tech to pre-dry the grounds, which makes them lighter and easier to transport. And for the final touch, smart bins sent real-time data to optimize the pickup routes for a fleet of electric vehicles. I mean, how cool is that? It's collaboration and smart tech working together perfectly.
Okay, now let's switch gears to something far more urgent. Back in 2023, a massive flash flood hit the Indian Himalayas. It took out 33 bridges, completely cutting off roads for life-saving medical supplies. In that kind of chaos, the goal is brutally simple but incredibly hard. Get aid to people as fast as you possibly can.
So what they came up with was this high-tech rescue kit, a combination of incredible technologies. First, you've got drones to just fly right over the impassable terrain. Then they used a classic algorithm, Dijkstra's, to instantly find the absolute fastest routes. They even used smart contracts on a blockchain for totally transparent, tamper-proof proof of delivery. And tying it all together? Fuzzy logic. It was crucial for dealing with all the uncertainty and chaos on the ground.
And the result? It was absolutely staggering. Look at this. Traditional methods would have taken more than 10 hours. And in a medical emergency, 10 hours can be an eternity. But the optimized drone model, it got the job done in just 4.2 hours. We're talking about cutting the time by more than half. That's a difference that literally saves lives.
All right, for our last story, let's go inside a big German car company. And we're coming right back to that black box problem we mentioned earlier. So their AI system flagged a supplier as being a risk. The problem? It couldn't say why. And if you're a manager, how can you trust a recommendation you don't understand? So the real goal wasn't just about getting a better prediction, it was about fixing that fundamental lack of trust.
So to tackle this, researchers put causal machine learning to the test. They pitted it against the old black box AI and the company's existing manual process. Then, they showed the results to 25 seasoned supply chain experts, and, well, the verdict was overwhelming. Almost 65% of them chose the causal ML model. And why? Because it was transparent, it was explainable, it gave them answers they could actually use and trust.
You know, when you put all these stories together, they all point to the same powerful idea. The future isn't about robots taking over. It's about using smarter tech to help humans make way smarter decisions.
In that expert verdict, it was more than just a slight preference. When they crunched the numbers, there was a 75.2% group consensus that causal ML was superior. And that sends a huge message, right? When tech stops being a mysterious black box and starts being transparent and explainable, people, the experts who use it every day, don't just accept it, they embrace it.
There's a quote adapted from the research that just nails the whole spirit of Industry 5.0. It's not about automation for its own sake. It's about a true partnership. It's about weaving together our human intuition and expertise with the incredible power of technology so we can build a system that's more holistic, resilient, and adaptive than anything we could have built on our own. So we've basically gone on this journey, right? From a fragile global nervous system that was constantly on edge to the very beginnings of a resilient, intelligent system that can actually learn and heal itself. This is the supply chain's big brain finally coming online.
Think about it. By turning coffee grounds into a resource, by delivering aid in a disaster, by building trust between people and AI, our supply chains are learning. They're learning to adapt, to respond, to heal. And that leaves us with one really exciting question to chew on. What will they learn to do next?